Hey guys, I'm here to get into a Clockwork Orange, which is directed by Stanley Kubrick, released in the year 1971. And this is just a very raw display from start to finish, which has just meant so much to me over the years, ever since I first watched it when I was 15. It's like the shift in perspective always changes every year as it goes, but this is like something of an ultimate kind of dreamy nightmare unfolding. As you look at the mid 90s by way of an early 70s perspective, Stanley Kubrick just really gets in this almost forward thinking way that just feels like very relevant to a lot of the dark art that was happening in the time, the nihilistic perspective. And I think Kubrick kind of did lay out my favorite kind of way of looking at all the dark, raw darkness, which is very influential towards. Particularly, you see a lot of elements of Paul Thomas Anderson and David Lynch living in like the directorial way of perceiving. I think that this is like a perfect foundation that's just on a level of shock value. Like, this is an ultimate piece of shock cinema, which really got to me around the time I first saw like Pulp Fiction, Silence of the Lambs, and I realized these are like the most influential depictions of psychopathy I've ever seen, as it explores just raw kind of power dynamic with ugly depiction, but with an ultimate sense of charisma as well. As he's like a genius in a sense, but he's ultimately just a really bad person that gets into all kinds of insane, like warped kind of like perspectives and scenarios, as they kind of as an ultimate questioning of just like where they're going to command us. It's just a ridiculous kind of satirical way of looking at just a lot of insanity, basically. The way it's paced is just like very slow paced. And just every act. This is one of those films where I've always kind of loved this film more as it progresses, because you kind of get to the humanity a little more in the second and third act. In the first act, it's just like the psychopathy in action. You get like kind of the raw analysis of the psychopathy in the second and third act. And this is just very disturbing. This is very haunting from start to finish. I think what it leaves on me, it's very timelessly it's like ahead of its time, and it's just really warped in ways that kind of like brought a lot of like humanity to a lot of like maybe perhaps what I was loving it so much about was like discovering a lot of Quentin Tarantino and Sergio Leone for the first time. I feel like a lot of insanity is happening. But it's like kind of like there's those directors like almost just have like such a hip way about it, but there's almost like a darker side. Kubrick was just a little like Kubrick just seems like he's plain old darker about it, and that's what always resonated so much about this with me. Like this is just extremely warped, extremely just messed up. Really, like it's just a very gross outlook on the mid '90s kind of way. A perfect soundtrack too. Honestly, this is one of the greatest soundtracks I've ever heard. By Wendy Carlos. This is just watches over as an all-time. Jim creates a really hypnotic kind of atmosphere to start to finish. It kind of involves like a lot of the satirical elements of Doctor Strangelove, and perhaps like Kubrick was really doing a lot of the bipolar. I see a lot of a bipolar imbalance between Chosen One and Space Odyssey in this. I feel like Space Odyssey is like a joyful end, and this is like a gloomy end. This is where he's just. Yeah, like this is like kind of like what a depressed person is seeing in a warped outlook on life, in a very raw, perhaps the rawest extent I've ever made in a sense, along with Apocalypse Now. But this is just kind of like Kubrick is onto, like, in general, just a very intimate look at psychopathy, and it just really holds up with all time. It's just like a very timeless kind of way of perceiving a lot of madness, very close up. And it's an all-time favorite for its timeless influence, and just the amount of time that's just been rewatched over the years. It's just the way it's influenced and shifted along with taking all the other projects I've seen. This is just a real original in many different levels. It's strongly recommended for a real powerhouse